The savage torture instruments the Spanish Inquisition used against women in the quiet town of Calvados. Nestled between rolling hills and thick forests, there was a small museum no one paid much attention to. Its walls were old and cracked, its doors squeaked loudly when opened, and the paint had faded from years of sun. Most people only walked past it, thinking it was just another dusty building from a long-forgotten era. But for Elias Marlowe, a young historian with a sharp mind and endless curiosity, the museum was a place of wonder. Elias had always been fascinated by history, not the dates and names that filled school textbooks, but the stories hidden between them. He loved discovering the forgotten lives of people who had lived centuries before him, the inventions that had been lost, the secret knowledge that time had buried. When he first heard about the museum's collection of mysterious instruments used during the Inquisition, his heart raced, not because of the violence they caused, but because of the craftsmanship, the ingenuity, and the secrets they might hold. He arrived early one morning, the sun barely peeking over the hills. The museum's doors groaned as he pushed them open, and a musty smell of old wood and parchment greeted him. Dust floated in the light like tiny stars, and he felt a shiver of excitement run down his spine. Inside, the museum was quiet, almost empty, except for a few display cases and the faint echo of his footsteps. At the center of the museum was a large exhibit, carefully labeled, "Instruments of the Inquisition." The glass cases held strange objects. Some looked like mechanical puzzles, others like intricate locks or delicate metalworks. There were no gruesome images or descriptions, only careful notes about how they were made and what purposes they were believed to serve. Elias walked slowly, studying each piece. His fingers itched to touch them, but he knew he could not. Instead, he leaned close, reading the inscriptions and the notes left by historians long ago. One device caught his attention. It was small, about the size of a human hand, made of polished metal with gears and springs inside. According to the plaque, it was designed to test truthfulness, though no one really knew how it worked. Some believed it was a prototype of early machinery that could read human reactions, a kind of mechanical mind reader. Elias smiled. So much mystery and yet so little understanding, he whispered to himself. He took out his notebook and began sketching the device, noting the tiny screws, the hidden levers, and the patterns in the gears. As he worked, he felt a strange connection to the people who had made it. Whoever designed this had been brilliant, even if their intentions had been misused by history. Suddenly, he noticed a small compartment in the back of the display case. It was almost invisible, hidden behind a decorative panel. Curiosity overpowered caution, and he carefully pried it open. Inside, he found a folded piece of parchment, yellowed and brittle with age. He held it gently in his hands, feeling the weight of centuries. Unfolding the parchment, Elias discovered a series of diagrams and notes, written in a code he did not immediately understand. The symbols were intricate, like a language of machines, and the sketches were precise, showing complex mechanisms far ahead of their time. He realized he had stumbled upon something extraordinary. These were plans for devices that combined science, logic, and clever design, tools not of cruelty, but of invention. His mind raced. If he could decipher the code, he might uncover knowledge lost for hundreds of years. Knowledge that could reveal how people thought, how they solved problems, and how humanity's ingenuity had always found ways to survive and adapt, even in dark times. He felt a thrill that was part excitement, part fear. This was no longer just history. It was a puzzle, a challenge, and he was determined to solve it. Elias spent hours in the museum that day. The sunlight shifted through the dusty windows, casting patterns across the floor, but he did not notice. He traced the symbols, made careful copies of the diagrams, and began to hypothesize how the mechanisms might have worked. Every line, every gear, every spring seemed deliberate, a reflection of a mind that valued precision and creativity above all else. By the time the museum's caretaker reminded him it was closing, Elias had filled dozens of pages with sketches, notes, and ideas. He stepped outside, the cool evening air brushing against his face, and felt a strange sense of purpose. He had discovered something incredible, something that could remind humanity of its own potential. Not weapons, not torture, not cruelty, but the brilliance of human thought, preserved through centuries. Over the next few days, Elias returned to the museum as often as he could. He pored over books, compared old records, and tried to decode the parchment. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. The symbols corresponded to gears, levers, and mathematical formulas. The sketches were more than just machines. They were machines of logic, machines of discovery, machines that reflected the human mind's ability to solve problems under pressure. One evening, while Elias studied the parchment by candlelight, he realized something remarkable. The devices, though simple by modern standards, demonstrated principles of physics and engineering that were centuries ahead of their time. Someone had been experimenting with mechanisms, with cause and effect, with observation and reaction, long before the Industrial Revolution. Humanity, he thought, had always been capable of incredible things. Elias felt a surge of hope. History often told stories of darkness, of cruelty, of suffering, but the parchment reminded him of something else: humanity's persistence, creativity, and brilliance. The minds that had designed these devices had been trapped in a cruel system, yet they had still expressed ingenuity, intelligence, and curiosity. That, he realized, was worth celebrating. Determined to learn more, Elias decided to recreate one of the simpler devices. He gathered tools, metals, and materials, and began working late into the night. Every turn of a screw, every alignment of a gear, felt like he was connecting with a mind from the past. He could almost imagine the person who had designed it, thinking carefully, experimenting, failing, and trying again. As he worked, he noticed something extraordinary. The device, once assembled, began to function almost magically. It was a simple mechanism, but it responded to movement, pressure, and timing with remarkable precision. Elias realized that centuries ago, someone had understood principles of mechanics in a way that was truly ahead of their time. That night, Elias could hardly sleep. His mind was alive with ideas. The parchment, the museum, the machines, they were more than historical artifacts. They were a message from the past, that humans, even in the darkest times, had always been capable of brilliance, of creation, and of solving problems in ways that could inspire generations to come. Elias knew that this was only the beginning. The parchment had more diagrams, more codes, more mysteries waiting to be solved, and he was determined to uncover them all. Humanity's story, he thought, was not just one of survival, it was one of intelligence, curiosity, and endless potential. And he would be the one to bring that story to light. As dawn broke over Calvados, painting the hills in shades of gold and pink, Elias returned to the museum once more. He carried with him tools, notes, and a heart full of determination. The mysteries of the past were calling him, and he was ready to answer. Somewhere in the depths of the museum, the hidden designs waited patiently, ready to reveal the genius of the human mind to anyone brave enough to look, learn, and create. Elias stepped into the quiet halls, his footsteps echoing softly, and smiled. The journey had just begun. Elias returned to the museum the next morning, a small leather satchel hanging from his shoulder. Inside were tools, notebooks, pencils, and several sheets of parchment he had brought to copy the mysterious diagrams. The sun shone brightly over Calvados, but inside the museum, shadows stretched long and deep, as if the old building itself was waiting to share its secrets. He approached the display case once again, his eyes scanning the intricate devices. He had managed to recreate one of the smaller mechanisms the night before, and it worked beautifully. The device moved with precision, responding to pressure and timing in a way that amazed him. But there were more diagrams, more codes on the parchment, and he was determined to unlock their meaning. Elias set to work carefully. He spread out the parchment, examining the symbols one by one. Each symbol seemed to represent not just a part of the machine, but a principle of motion, energy, or balance. As he studied, he realized that the diagrams were like a map, a guide to understanding human thought through mechanical logic. The people who had designed these devices had not just been inventors, they had been teachers, leaving lessons for anyone willing to learn. Hours passed, and the museum remained empty. The only sound was the scratching of Elias' pencil against paper, the soft hum of his own thoughts, and the occasional creak of the old building. He traced the diagrams carefully, connecting lines, labeling parts, and writing down his hypotheses. Slowly, he began to see patterns emerge, and with each discovery, his excitement grew. It was when he reached the third diagram that Elias realized something astonishing. This device was far more advanced than the first. It involved a series of levers, springs, and weights that seemed to work together in a delicate balance. If constructed correctly, it could perform calculations, complex ones, using only mechanical energy. Elias could hardly believe it. Centuries ago, someone had invented a machine that could think in a sense, using pure logic and precision. His mind raced with possibilities. Could this be the foundation of modern computers, hidden long before anyone imagined? The thought thrilled him, but he knew he had to proceed carefully. One wrong move could damage the fragile parchment or misalign the delicate mechanisms. He decided to recreate the device in parts, testing each piece as he went. Elias spent the rest of the day gathering materials. He collected small gears, springs, metal rods, and wooden boards, all carefully measured and cut. He worked slowly, deliberately, treating each piece as a work of art. By the time evening arrived, he had assembled the first section of the machine. It was simple, yet beautiful, and he could see the potential in every movement of the gears. As night fell, Elias lit a lantern and continued his work. The soft glow illuminated the parchment, highlighting the intricate symbols and diagrams. He felt a connection to the past, imagining the mind that had created this device. Whoever it was had been clever, patient, and full of curiosity, the very qualities that Elias admired most in humanity. When the first section was complete, he tested it carefully. The gears turned smoothly, the springs reacted as expected, and the device performed simple calculations exactly as the diagrams indicated. Elias' heart leapt with joy. This was more than a machine. It was a testament to human intelligence, a reminder that creativity and curiosity had always existed, even in difficult times. The next few days were a blur of work and discovery. Elias carefully assembled each section of the machine, following the coded instructions on the parchment. He made mistakes, of course, but each mistake was a lesson. He learned to adjust gears, balance weights, and align springs with precision. Slowly, the device began to take shape, and with it, Elias' understanding of the mind that had designed it deepened. One afternoon, as he worked, the museum's caretaker, an elderly man named Herrick, wandered by. Herrick had always been curious about Elias' work but had never asked too many questions. Today, however, he paused, peering over Elias' shoulder. "Good heavens," Herrick whispered, eyes wide. "Is that a machine?" Elias smiled. "Not just any machine," he said. "It's a machine of logic, of calculation, of understanding. Someone designed this centuries ago, and it's far ahead of its time." Herrick shook his head slowly. "I've seen many old devices in my life, but nothing like this. It's remarkable." Elias nodded. "I think the person who made it wanted to teach something, not harm anyone. It's proof of human brilliance, even in difficult times. They wanted knowledge to survive, to be passed on." Herrick studied the device, then said quietly, "Then perhaps it's up to you to make sure it is." Elias felt a surge of determination. Herrick was right. This was more than a personal discovery. It was a message from the past, a reminder that humanity had always been capable of extraordinary things. And now, it was Elias' task to uncover it fully. Over the next week, Elias continued his work with relentless focus. He decoded more of the parchment, carefully reconstructing each mechanism. He discovered clever ways the machines used balance and motion to perform calculations, to store information, and even to anticipate movement. It was as if the designer had created small, mechanical minds, machines that could learn in their own way, using only gears and levers. As Elias worked, he began to see a pattern in the designs. The machines were not isolated inventions. They were parts of a larger system, a network of ideas that connected mathematics, logic, and observation. The person who had created them had been thinking not just about one machine, but about a series of machines, each building on the knowledge of the previous one. One evening, exhausted but exhilarated, Elias realized he had completed the main device. It was larger than the first two he had built, composed of dozens of interconnected gears, levers, and springs. He took a deep breath and tested it carefully. The machine came to life. Gears turned in perfect harmony, levers moved smoothly, and weights balanced precisely. It performed calculations, tracked sequences, and responded to input exactly as the diagrams had indicated. Elias could hardly believe what he was seeing. This was not just a machine. It was a work of genius, a reflection of human intelligence preserved through centuries. As he watched the device work, Elias felt a deep sense of connection to the past. He imagined the person who had designed it, working late into the night by candlelight, thinking carefully, experimenting, and refining their ideas. That mind, long gone, had left a legacy that Elias could now understand and share. Elias realized that this discovery was bigger than any one person. It was a reminder of humanity's potential, of what humans could achieve when curiosity, patience, and intelligence were combined. He felt proud, not just of his own work, but of the generations of minds that had made this possible. The next challenge was to understand the remaining diagrams on the parchment. These were more complex, hinting at machines that could perform advanced logic, track patterns, and even simulate decision-making. Elias knew that recreating them would be difficult, but he also knew it was possible. Humanity had always overcome challenges through ingenuity, and he would be no different. As he studied the diagrams late into the night, Elias noticed a hidden pattern in the symbols. They were not just instructions. They were lessons in problem-solving, teaching anyone who could decode them how to think logically and creatively. He realized that the designer had intended these machines to be more than tools. They were teaching devices, guiding future generations to unlock their own potential. Elias felt a deep sense of purpose. This discovery was not just about history, it was about the future. If he could share these designs with the world, it could inspire new generations of inventors, engineers, and thinkers. It was proof that human creativity and intelligence had always been remarkable, and it could continue to be so. Over the following days, Elias worked tirelessly to decode the final diagrams. Each discovery filled him with wonder, revealing principles of mechanics, logic, and observation that were centuries ahead of their time. He marveled at the cleverness of the designs, the precision of the mechanisms, and the insight of the mind that had created them. Finally, after weeks of study, reconstruction, and testing, Elias had recreated the entire set of devices. The machines, once dormant and forgotten, now hummed with life under his careful hands. They were beautiful, intricate, and brilliant, reflecting the genius of humanity in every moving part. Elias leaned back in his chair, exhausted but triumphant. He looked at the machines and the parchment, and a smile spread across his face. The journey had been long, challenging, and filled with surprises, but it had been worth every moment. He had uncovered a legacy of human brilliance, preserved through centuries, and he was ready to share it with the world. As he prepared to leave the museum that night, Elias felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. The machines had taught him more than he could have imagined, not just about mechanics or logic, but about human potential, creativity, and the enduring power of curiosity. He knew that the journey was far from over. There were still mysteries to uncover, ideas to explore, and lessons to learn. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of rest, content in the knowledge that humanity's brilliance had survived, waiting to be discovered and celebrated once more. The days following the completion of the main device were filled with a quiet excitement. Elias had finally reconstructed the ancient mechanisms, each one a marvel of precision and ingenuity. Yet, he felt a tug of unease in his mind, as if the machines themselves were hinting that his journey was far from over. The parchment still held one final set of diagrams, partially obscured by age and fading ink. He had studied them briefly before, but now, with the rest of the machines working, he believed he could finally understand their purpose. Elias returned to the museum early one morning, just as the first rays of sunlight illuminated the dusty halls. The devices, gleaming faintly in the soft light, seemed almost alive. He placed the parchment on the table and began to examine the remaining diagrams. Unlike the others, these were more abstract, filled with patterns and symbols that suggested movement, timing, and interaction. Elias realized that the last machine was not meant to operate alone. It was meant to connect with the others, forming a network of logic and motion. He leaned closer, tracing the symbols with his finger. Each line seemed to lead to another, like a path through a maze. The diagrams hinted at feedback loops, adjustments, and reactions, principles that could allow the machines to communicate with one another. Elias felt a shiver of awe. Whoever had created this system had been thinking on a scale far beyond his own understanding. They had designed not just individual machines, but a connected system capable of processing information and responding intelligently. Determined, Elias gathered his tools and began assembling the final machine. The parts were delicate and required precise alignment. Springs had to be tensioned just so, gears needed to mesh perfectly, and the balance of weights was critical. Every step demanded patience and care. Unlike the previous devices, this machine could not be tested in isolation. Its true function would only be revealed once it was integrated with the others. Hours turned into days as Elias worked tirelessly. He encountered countless obstacles, parts that refused to align, diagrams that seemed to contradict each other, and mechanisms that failed repeatedly. Yet he refused to give up. With each failure, he learned something new, adjusting his approach, refining his techniques, and slowly bringing the machine to life. During one long night, as rain tapped softly against the museum windows, Elias paused to rest. He gazed at the growing collection of devices and the parchment that guided him. He realized that this work was more than a personal challenge. It was a message from the past, a demonstration of human ingenuity, and a testament to perseverance. The creator of these machines had faced their own challenges, yet they had left behind knowledge that could inspire generations. Elias felt a surge of determination. He would honor that legacy. By the end of the week, the final machine was assembled. Elias carefully positioned it in relation to the others, connecting levers, gears, and pulleys according to the diagrams. His hands trembled with anticipation as he took a deep breath and tested the system. At first, nothing happened. The machines remained still as if waiting for something. Elias checked the alignments, tensions, and connections, but everything seemed correct. Frustration threatened to overtake him, but he reminded himself to remain calm. Patience and observation were key. He stepped back, studying the machines from a distance. Slowly, he noticed subtle movements. A gear shifted slightly, A lever adjusted its angle, and a spring reacted to the slightest pressure. Then, with a soft series of clicks and hums, the machines began to operate in harmony. The interconnected devices moved with precision, responding to each other in a complex rhythm. Gears spun, levers shifted, and weights balanced perfectly. The final machine triggered a cascade of motion throughout the network, as if awakening a long-forgotten intelligence. Elias watched in amazement. He realized that he had created something extraordinary, a system that demonstrated not only mechanical genius, but also the potential for understanding, learning, and problem-solving. As he observed, Elias began to notice patterns emerging from the system. The machines were performing calculations, tracking sequences, and responding to input in ways he had never expected. It was as if the ancient designer had anticipated questions, responses, and even errors, building a system capable of adapting and learning. Elias felt a thrill of awe. This was not just an invention. It was a celebration of human intellect, a message that intelligence and creativity could endure, even across centuries. Yet, Elias knew that this discovery was fragile. The machines were delicate, and their knowledge was stored only in their precise construction and alignment. One misstep could undo years of work. He made careful notes, documented every adjustment, and prepared a plan to preserve the devices. He wanted others to learn from them, to understand the principles behind their operation, and to be inspired by the ingenuity they represented. As Elias worked, he began to share his progress with Herrick, the museum caretaker. Herrick was fascinated, though he often shook his head in disbelief at the complexity of the machines. "I've seen many strange things in my life," Herrick said one evening, "but nothing like this. It's as if the past itself is speaking through these devices." Elias nodded. "Exactly. This is a message from long ago, showing what humans are capable of when they think, create, and persevere. It's more than history, it's proof of our potential." Word of Elias' work began to spread quietly. Scholars, engineers, and curious minds visited the museum, drawn by whispers of the remarkable machines. They observed Elias' demonstrations, asked questions, and offered insights. Yet no one could fully grasp the entirety of the system. It was Elias' dedication, patience, and persistence that had brought the machines to life, and he remained the primary guardian of their knowledge. One afternoon, while examining the devices, Elias noticed something unexpected. A small gear in the central mechanism had shifted slightly out of alignment. He frowned. Nothing should have moved without intention. He carefully adjusted the gear, but the movement repeated. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakable. Elias felt a spark of curiosity and caution. Could it be that the machines were more than mechanical? Could they respond in ways he had not anticipated? Determined to understand, Elias began conducting experiments. He applied slight inputs to the system, observed the responses, and recorded patterns. Gradually, he realized that the interconnected machines were capable of recognizing sequences, adjusting behavior, and maintaining balance. It was as if they had a form of memory, a way to learn from the input provided. Elias' heart raced. The ancient designer had created a system that demonstrated adaptation, logic, and problem-solving, all encoded mechanically. This revelation brought new challenges. Elias had to carefully test every function, predict every response, and ensure the machines remained stable. Each adjustment required thought, patience, and ingenuity. Yet, with every success, Elias felt a growing sense of connection to the past. The system was more than a machine. It was a bridge between centuries, linking human curiosity and intelligence across time. One evening, Elias received a letter from a fellow historian in a nearby city. The scholar had heard of his work and wanted to see the devices firsthand. Excited by the opportunity to share his discoveries, Elias prepared a demonstration. He carefully aligned the machines, checked every spring and gear, and explained their history, purpose, and principles. The visiting scholar was astonished. "This is incredible," they said. "These machines are not just tools, they are a testament to human creativity, logic, and perseverance." Elias smiled, proud but humble. "Exactly. That is the message I hope people take away. Humanity has always been capable of incredible things, and these devices are proof. They remind us of what we can achieve with curiosity, patience, and imagination." As the weeks passed, Elias continued to refine the machines and explore their potential. He discovered new ways to combine their functions, solve complex problems, and simulate logical reasoning. Each day brought new insights, and he marveled at the ingenuity of the ancient designer. Their work had survived centuries, yet its brilliance remained undiminished, waiting for someone to unlock its secrets. Elias also began to document his own discoveries, creating detailed notes, diagrams, and explanations. He wanted future generations to learn from the machines, to understand the principles behind them, and to be inspired to create, innovate, and explore. He knew that knowledge was a gift, and he was determined to share it responsibly, preserving both the machines and the lessons they contained. One quiet night, as Elias worked by lantern light, he paused to reflect. The machines, now fully operational, hummed softly in their precise movements. They were more than metal and springs. They were a celebration of human potential, a reminder that ingenuity, creativity, and perseverance could overcome even the most challenging circumstances. Elias felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had not only uncovered the secrets of the past, but had also connected with a legacy of intelligence and curiosity that spanned centuries. He knew that more challenges awaited. There were still mysteries within the diagrams, ideas yet to be explored and lessons to be learned. Yet Elias was ready. The machines had taught him patience, logic, and the importance of careful observation. They had shown him the enduring power of human thought. And he was determined to continue his work, inspired by the brilliance of those who had come before him, and motivated to leave his own mark for those who would follow. As dawn broke over Calvados, casting golden light through the museum windows, Elias stood and watched the machines. They moved in harmony, responding to one another with precision and grace. He felt a quiet pride, a deep connection to the past, and an unwavering belief in humanity's potential. The journey was far from over, but Elias knew that, together, humans and their inventions could achieve extraordinary things. And so, with renewed determination, he prepared for the next chapter of his work, ready to explore the remaining mysteries, push the boundaries of understanding, and celebrate the brilliance of the human mind in every turn of the gears. The morning sun spilled into the museum, filling the old halls with a warm, golden light. Elias Marlowe stood among the machines, his eyes scanning the intricate gears, levers, and springs that had consumed so many weeks of his life. The devices, now fully operational, moved in a perfect symphony, responding to each other with a precision that amazed him every time. For the first time, Elias allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He thought of the ancient mind who had designed these machines centuries ago, someone who had used logic, ingenuity, and patience to leave a legacy that had survived the test of time. Elias knew that this work was not just about history. It was about the enduring power of human intelligence, the way curiosity could drive discovery, and how determination could bring ideas to life even after centuries. These machines were more than artifacts. They were a testament to what humans could achieve when they combined thought, creativity, and persistence. That morning, he received a visitor. A young engineer named Clara, who had read about his work in scholarly journals, stepped into the museum with wide eyes. "I've never seen anything like this," she said, her voice full of awe. "How did you even begin to understand these machines?" Elias smiled. "It took patience, observation, and a lot of trial and error," he said. But more than that, it took believing that someone long ago had put knowledge here for us to discover. That belief made me persistent. Clara nodded, clearly inspired. She walked slowly among the devices, running her fingers over the smooth metal and intricate gears. "It's incredible," she said. "These machines aren't just clever, they're elegant. Every movement has a purpose, and they're teaching us how to think, not just how to build." Elias agreed. Exactly. The ancient designer wanted their ideas to survive, to inspire future minds. These machines aren't just tools, they are lessons in logic, problem-solving, and creativity. They show us what humans are capable of, even under difficult circumstances. Together, Elias and Clara spent the day running experiments. They tested the machine's ability to perform calculations, track patterns, and respond to sequences. They discovered hidden interactions that Elias had not noticed before. Small adjustments in one device influenced another in subtle, fascinating ways. Each discovery was a reminder of the brilliance encoded in the ancient designs, and it filled Elias with renewed excitement. As the days passed, the museum became a hub of curiosity and learning. Scholars, engineers, and students visited, eager to witness the machines in action. Elias guided them, explaining the principles behind each mechanism and demonstrating how they work together. People were captivated not by the age of the machines, but by their intelligence, precision, and elegance. For many, it was a revelation, a reminder that human ingenuity had always been remarkable. One evening, as Elias worked alone, he noticed something extraordinary. A pattern was emerging in the machine's responses, one that seemed almost intentional. The devices were not just following instructions. They were interacting in a way that suggested a higher level of logic, a method of learning from input and adjusting accordingly. Elias realized that the ancient designer had created a system capable of adapting to new situations, solving problems in ways that went beyond simple mechanical motion. The realization thrilled him. Humanity had always found ways to innovate, even in the darkest times, and these machines were proof. They demonstrated not only knowledge but also creativity, observation, and adaptability, the very traits that defined human excellence. Elias felt a deep sense of pride, knowing he was uncovering a message that transcended centuries. The museum soon became more than a place of learning. It became a center for inspiration. Young inventors began experimenting with ideas sparked by the machines, developing new devices, and exploring concepts of logic, mechanics, and problem-solving. Elias encouraged them, sharing what he had learned and guiding them to think critically and creatively. He was no longer just a historian. He had become a mentor, helping to ignite curiosity and ingenuity in the next generation. One day, while Elias was explaining the machine's adaptive functions to a group of students, he realized something remarkable. The patterns the devices had revealed could be applied beyond the museum. They could inspire solutions to real-world problems, engineering challenges, mathematical puzzles, and even ways to improve learning and decision-making. Humanity, he thought, had always been capable of innovation, and these machines were a testament to that enduring potential. Encouraged by this insight, Elias and Clara began documenting everything meticulously. They created diagrams, instructions, and explanations that preserved the knowledge encoded in the machines. Their goal was clear: to share the brilliance of the past with the future, to inspire minds to think, create, and explore. Every page of notes became a bridge, connecting the ingenuity of centuries ago with the potential of today and tomorrow. As months passed, Elias noticed changes not only in the museum but also in himself. His understanding of the machines had deepened, and with it, his appreciation for human creativity and perseverance. He realized that the journey of discovery was not just about the devices, it was about the human qualities that made them possible: curiosity, patience, intelligence, and determination. These were the traits that had allowed the ancient designer to leave such a legacy, and they were the traits that Elias hoped to inspire in others. One quiet evening, Elias reflected on how far the journey had come. From a small museum in Calvados, he had uncovered the brilliance of human thought, reconstructed ancient machines, and inspired a community of learners and innovators. The devices themselves were remarkable, but the true marvel was the message they carried: that humans, through intelligence and perseverance, could achieve extraordinary things. He thought of the ancient designer, working silently by candlelight, crafting these machines with precision, creativity, and care. That person had faced limitations, uncertainty, and challenges, yet had found ways to encode knowledge that would survive centuries. Elias felt a profound connection across time, a shared understanding of what it meant to explore, create, and overcome obstacles. The machines continued to hum softly in the background, each movement a reminder of human potential. Elias knew that there were still discoveries to be made, patterns to uncover, and ideas to explore. Yet, he also knew that the work he had done so far was enough to inspire and guide future generations. Humanity's story was not just one of survival, it was a story of brilliance, curiosity, and achievement. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the museum windows, Elias made a decision. The knowledge contained in the machines and the parchment could no longer remain a secret. He organized a public demonstration, inviting scholars, students, and curious minds from near and far. The museum buzzed with excitement as people gathered to witness the machines in action. Elias explained the history, the purpose, and the principles behind each device. He demonstrated how the machines could interact, adapt, and solve complex problems. The audience was captivated, many leaning forward in awe as the devices moved with precision and intelligence. The young engineers and scholars present could see not just the mechanics, but the message: that human thought, creativity, and perseverance had always been capable of remarkable achievements. After the demonstration, Elias invited questions and discussions. People marveled at the ingenuity, asked how they might apply these principles in modern life, and shared their own ideas inspired by the machines. Elias listened, guided, and encouraged, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. The legacy of the ancient designer was alive, influencing minds, inspiring innovation, and celebrating human potential. In the weeks that followed, the museum became a hub of learning and invention. Students experimented, scholars studied, and inventors tested new ideas. Elias watched with pride as the machines continued to teach, inspire, and challenge those who engaged with them. The lessons of centuries past had found new life, proving that human intelligence was timeless, adaptable, and enduring. Elias reflected on the journey. What had begun as a quiet curiosity in a forgotten museum had blossomed into a movement celebrating human ingenuity. The machines were more than tools. They were a reminder that humans, through patience, creativity, and determination, could achieve greatness. They were proof that knowledge, carefully preserved and thoughtfully applied, could inspire generations across time. He thought of the people who had created the devices, long ago, and felt a deep sense of gratitude and connection. Their brilliance had survived centuries, waiting for someone to uncover it. Elias had done more than reconstruct machines. He had bridged time, connected minds, and shared the enduring message of human potential. As the sun set over Calvados, casting warm colors across the hills, Elias looked around the museum. The machines moved with precision, the students and scholars engaged in learning, and the soft hum of gears filled the air. Humanity's story of intelligence, curiosity, and achievement had been preserved and celebrated. Elias smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. The machines would continue to inspire, the lessons would endure, and the potential of human creativity would remain limitless. Through perseverance, observation, and imagination, humans could overcome challenges, unlock mysteries, and create marvels beyond what anyone could imagine. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by the hum of moving gears and the energy of inspired minds, Elias understood the true message of the ancient designer, that humanity, through curiosity and ingenuity, could achieve greatness, leaving a legacy that would endure across centuries. The journey of discovery, invention, and inspiration would continue, carried forward by every mind willing to look, think, and create. Humanity had always been capable of brilliance, and now, through the machines and the legacy Elias had uncovered, that brilliance would shine even brighter, guiding the future toward new heights of knowledge and achievement. Years passed, but the small museum in Calvados never returned to silence. What was once a forgotten place had become a center of learning, curiosity, and inspiration. Elias Marlowe often stood at the entrance, watching visitors walk in with wonder in their eyes. Children, students, engineers, and thinkers from many places came not for entertainment, but for understanding. The machines still moved softly inside, their gears turning with calm precision, reminding everyone that human intelligence could cross centuries without fading. Elias had grown older, but his curiosity had not weakened. If anything, it had deepened. He now spent less time building and more time guiding others. He believed knowledge was strongest when shared. The ancient designer's legacy had not been meant for one mind alone, and Elias respected that deeply. One quiet morning, Elias noticed a group of young students gathered around the central machine. They were discussing patterns, logic, and possible improvements. He listened without interrupting. Their ideas were fresh, bold, and creative. Some of their thoughts went beyond what Elias himself had considered. Instead of correcting them, he smiled. This, he thought, was the true success of the machines, not just that they worked, but that they inspired new thinking. Clara, now a respected engineer and educator, joined Elias near the observation table. "They're seeing possibilities," she said softly, "just like you did." Elias shook his head gently. "No," he replied, "they're seeing more. That means humanity is moving forward." Together, Elias and Clara had published detailed records of the machines. They avoided making them mysterious or untouchable. Instead, they explained every principle in clear language, encouraging others to rebuild, adapt, and improve the ideas. Their work spread across universities and learning centers, not as ancient secrets, but as proof of what careful thinking could achieve. Soon, similar mechanical learning systems appeared in other places. They were inspired by the old designs but built with modern materials. These new systems helped students understand logic, cause and effect, and problem-solving in physical ways. Elias was proud, not because his name was remembered, but because the ideas were alive. One afternoon, while reviewing old notes, Elias discovered something he had overlooked. It was not a diagram or a machine part, but a short written passage hidden at the bottom of the parchment. The words were faded but readable. They were simple, written not as instructions but as a message. It said, "The future belongs to those who learn, not those who fear." Elias read the lines again and again. He felt a quiet emotion rise in his chest. The ancient designer had never sought power or control. They had believed in humanity's ability to learn and improve. That belief had crossed centuries to reach him. That evening, Elias gathered the students and scholars who were present and shared the message with them. There was no dramatic reaction, no loud response. Instead, there was silence, deep and thoughtful. Everyone understood the meaning. Knowledge was not meant to be locked away. It was meant to grow, evolve, and help others rise. As time passed, the museum expanded. New halls were built, not to display artifacts but to encourage experimentation. Visitors were allowed to touch, test, and question. Failure was not discouraged. Elias often reminded them that every mistake was part of learning. Humanity had never advanced by avoiding errors, it had advanced by understanding them. One day, a young girl approached Elias with a small mechanical model she had built. It was rough, imperfect, but clever. She explained how it used balance and timing to solve a simple problem. Elias listened carefully, then nodded with approval. "This is good thinking," he said. "You didn't copy the machines, you learned from them." The girl smiled, proud and confident. In that moment, Elias understood that the ancient designer's legacy was complete. The knowledge had not only survived, it had transformed minds. Years later, Elias wrote his final book. It was not about the machines alone, but about the journey. He wrote about patience, curiosity, and trust in human intelligence. He avoided complex language. He wanted anyone, anywhere to understand. His message was clear. Humanity's greatest strength was not technology, but the ability to think, adapt, and imagine. When the book was released, it spread quietly but steadily. It was read by teachers, students, and thinkers. Some called it history, others called it philosophy. Elias simply called it a reminder. As Elias aged, he spent more time sitting among the machines, listening to their gentle motion. He no longer felt the need to fix or improve them. Others were doing that now. His role had changed, and he accepted it peacefully. He had been a discoverer, now he was a witness. On one calm evening, Clara joined him once more. "Do you ever wish you had found more?" she asked. Elias smiled softly. "No," he said. "We found exactly what we needed." The machines continued to inspire long after Elias stepped away from active work. When he eventually passed, there was no statue built in his honor. He had requested none. Instead, a simple plaque was placed near the entrance of the museum. It did not mention his achievements. It carried only a few words: "Curiosity builds the future." New generations came and went. The machines remained, but more importantly, the ideas remained. People learned not to fear complexity, not to worship the past, but to understand it. Humanity moved forward, guided not by force or control, but by thought and learning. Far into the future, when technology had advanced beyond gears and levers, the museum still stood, not as a relic but as a symbol. It reminded humanity that progress did not begin with advanced tools. It began with simple questions. And somewhere in the quiet turning of old gears, the message endured. That knowledge, when shared, became strength, and that humanity's greatest legacy was not power, but understanding.